The Brooklyn Nets are also another team that is struggling, Lauren. They are really, really struggling. They have lost 5 in a row. They also have lost 8 of their last 10. And I will just go and show you their record over the last little bit, okay? Since December, let's go until, the in-season tournament. Let's just keep that as kind of a delineation mark for these teams, okay? Their only wins come against, they have 3 wins since December 11th, okay? One of those wins against the Phoenix Suns. Cool, nice, awesome win. Sounds good. I don't know if anybody was hurt in that game. I can go double check in a second. The only 2 other wins the Brooklyn Nets have are back-to-back wins against the Detroit Pistons. So that means they just beat the team that they were supposed to, and then they got one against the Suns. The Nets have struggled immensely. It has not looked good. And I think similar to the Lakers, there's actually conversations about Jacques Vaughn, the rotation, how much of a buy-in there is. I saw a lot of Nets fans last night complaining about Nick Claxton and his inability. He's been struggling as of late. Mikal Bridges, being thrust into this primary role, has struggled over this month, to be honest with you. Hey, I have him on my fantasy team. I'm watching him every single night, not looking that good. Inefficient score, not able to get to his spots, not able to make plays for others. A lot of the steps that are required to become that primary option, Mikal Bridges is not being successful at right now. And I think this Nets team in general is just wholly confusing. They don't have a lot of roster balance. They have far too many wings. They have far too many contracts that don't necessarily play in a Ben Simmons. And I honestly just wonder, what is the point of this team is my real question. And I don't want to sound too harsh because I understand they don't own their pick right now. They want to be as competitive as possible this year because of that. But given that, right, I still need to know there's some sort of sense of direction, some sort of an idea for what this team is supposed to look like. And you look at the Nets and it's like, okay, Mikal Bridges, 34 minutes a night, looking really good, can probably be a second or third option on a really, really good team, right? But not a first option. Maybe he's punching above his weight a little bit too much right now. You look throughout the roster, Ben Simmons, we have no idea what's ever going to happen with Ben Simmons. Unfortunately, I don't think Ben Simmons is going to be, an NBA player for much longer after that contract expires. Spencer Dinwiddie, okay, cool, nice guard, decent, not bad at all, pretty impactful for the most part, consistent guard. Still, that's not something that you can hang your hat on. Yeah, Cam Thomas, right? Cam Thomas, exciting 40-point per game. Cam Thomas has looked terrible outside of being able to score the ball. Cannot do anything else, can't pass the ball, can't rebound, can't defend. It's just been very, very ugly in all of the minutes Cam Thompson has played. Cameron Johnson, again, another good secondary player, tertiary player, a guy who can play off of other stars. But Lauren, there's no other star on this roster for him to play off of. And I can keep going down the list. Dorian Finney-Smith, Nick Claxton, Royce O'Neal, even Lonnie Walker. They've got some good minutes out of Day'Ron Sharpe and Dennis Smith Jr. this season. But do any of those names pop out to you as we are going to build a franchise cornerstone around? No, absolutely not. And I wonder, kind of going back to our trade conversation, if this team gets involved in making a move. Nick Claxton, unrestricted free agent this summer, can walk if he wants to. Dorian Finney-Smith, obviously a highly touted highly touted rotation player that can help, a championship team. Same applies to Royce O'Neal. Does this team make a shakeup? Is my question to you, since this is your Christmas. How do you feel?
Right. I fully expect them to make at least one. I would expect, honestly, multiple, because you mentioned Nick Claxton, and that is a situation that I'm like, ooh, defensive player of the year candidate last year, but under 25, unrestricted free agent, like you said.
He wants money.
He wants money. And right now, Brooklyn is trying to have to, and this could have been Dallas, should I remind some people, are trying to decide how much money they're going to pay Spencer Dinwiddie to keep him. That is a tricky situation, just all context considered surrounding Spencer Dinwiddie. So when you look at Nick Claxton, you look at Royce O'Neal, you look at Dorian Finney-Smith, even someone like Lonnie Walker, who looked to be like a pretty interesting, solid signing for them at the time, is kind of like, okay, what is going on in Brooklyn? Who's available? My guess is pretty much everyone outside of Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson are available. And it just is like so many questions, so many guys that are not seemingly not being correctly used. I think Daron Sharp and how he's kind of surprised this year has been a really big plus for them. And I think they've even seen some really solid bright spots, maybe not the most consistent, but from Noah Clowney. You can kind of see what could be there. And so I think Brooklyn has options. They have options because of all the assets that they have. But I do absolutely think that if they're even considering going forward with starting Daron Sharp over Nick Claxton because of the shooting, because of the improved defense, okay, if you want to do that, do I agree with that? I don't know that I agree with that, but you've got to then decide, okay, well, if we're doing that, we need to trade Nick Claxton. We need to sell at least somewhat high based on last year's performance. And the same with Dorian Finney-Smith, the same with probably Royce O'Neal more so because he's also on the final year of his deal. But this is a perfect situation right now where you cannot afford to miss the opportunity of maximizing on selling the assets that you have. If you don't know what direction you're going, that's not great, but it's not the end of the world. At the same time, what is the end of the world is letting guys walk for nothing just because you didn't know what to do or you didn't know what direction to go. So I fully expect them to make multiple moves. I expect them to be fielding a lot of calls because those guys can fit on lots of different kinds of teams. So that's what I'm going to be keeping an eye on. I think somebody that could come in and steal Nick Claxton. I think Memphis should really kind of be all over that. I think there are lots of teams that are saying, okay, we kind of have a front court role to fill. We need a little bit more rim protection. We need a little bit more defense. Okay, Nick Claxton, he's a guy worth going to get, especially a lot of the team, even Golden State. Golden State's another one to watch with Nick Claxton. A team that needs front court depth that has expendable assets. That's what I'm going to be keeping my eye on.
That's a good point. And you know, the other thing I would say about the Nets is that if the goal, you know, they drafted well this summer. If you ask a draft expert, they would say that they drafted well. Noah Clowney, Dariq Whitehead, Jalen Wilson.
Yep.
I think you got to give those guys opportunities. Like if this team is not going anywhere, if you're not going to be competitive, if the goal is to try to find other pieces, right, for a team that isn't necessarily going to go out and, you know, yes, they have the opportunity to trade for these stars. They have the contracts. They have the extra picks, yada, yada, yada. But for the most part, like, they're kind of stuck in the middle right now with what their direction and future might be. So you kind of need to play these young guys to see if you have anything else left in the arsenal. Because if Dariq Whitehead or Noah Clowney or Jalen Wilson turn into something, now you have more assets.
You gotta be ready.
Now you have something else that you can move. Now, or you can keep them, you know, you can keep them and develop them, and you can trade some of these other guys knowing that you have someone else behind them that is competing for a roster spot. So, going to be interesting to see what the Brooklyn Nets do in general.